ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकन्नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वदी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणर सद्गुरुं तन्नमामि यस्यान्तर्नादिमध्यं न हि करचरणं नामगोत्रं न सूत्रं नो जातिर्नैव वर्णं न भवति पुरुषो नो नपुंसो न च स्त्री नाकारो निर्विकारो न जनन मरणं नास्ति पुण्यं न पापं नो तत्त्वं तत्त्वमेकं सहजसमरसं सद्गुरुं तन्नमामि चिन्मयो नाम रूपस्य आनन्दो वै स्वभावतः वेदगीता समुद्धर्ता ज्ञानयज्ञव्रते स्थितः चिन्मयं जीवनं यस्य स्मरणं यश्च चेतना ज्ञानदानं धृतिर्यस्य तस्य पादौ भजाम्यहम् समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्. Now we will chant the first 7 mantras 1 to 7 in the second section of chapter 3. द्वौ सुपर्णा सयुजा सखाय समानं वृक्षं बर्हिषस्वजाते तयोरन्यः पिप्पलं स्वाद्वत्ति अनश्नन्यो अभिचाकशीति समाने वृक्षे पुरुषो निमग्नः अनीशया शोचति मुह्यमानः जुष्टं यदा पश्यत्यन्यमीशम् अस्य महिमानमिति भीतशोकः यदा पश्यते रुक्मवर्णम् कर्तारमीशं पुरुषं ब्रह्मयोनिम् तदा विद्वान् पुण्यपापे विधूय निरञ्जनः परमं साम्यमुपैति प्राणो येष यः सर्वभूतैर्विभाति विजानन् विद्वान् भवते नातिवादी आत्मक्रीड आत्मरतिः क्रियावान् एष ब्रह्मविदां वरिष्ठः सत्येन लभ्यस्तपसा येष आत्मा सम्यक् ज्ञानेन ब्रह्मचर्येण नित्यम् अन्तःशरीरे ज्योतिर्मयो हि शुभ्रः यं पश्यन्ति यतयः क्षीणदोषाः सत्यमेव जयते नानृतम् सत्येन पन्था विततो देवयानः येनाक्रमन्धृषयो याप्तकामाः यत्र तत्सत्यस्य परमं निधानम् बृहच्च तद्दिव्यमचिन्त्यरूपम् सूक्ष्माच्च तत्सूक्ष्मतरं विभाति दूरात् सुदूरे तदिहान्तिके च पश्यत्स्विहैव निहितं गुहायाम्. Hari Om friends. I, on behalf of Swasthya Sadhana Satsanga and myself, welcome you all to this online Satsang. The invitation and the host of these Satsang meetings, Shri Khare from Pune. He is keenly interested in the spiritual activities, and his parents, now at Bangalore, have attended our study groups somewhere in 90s. At present, Aniket is assisted in this project by our member, Mrs. Rohini and Mr. Satish Beth. With blessings from Puja Gurudev, Swasthya Sadhana, it started in October 2004. After 15 years, it has become a strong group of spiritual seekers. And we have started for our self-purification various projects apart from our weekly satsangas. The following projects are already on: Vichara Yajna, periodic; spiritual camps, periodic; then bimonthly Gita chanting, complete Gita chanting; then Swasthya Sadhana YouTube channel, and now Satsanga online through video conferencing. We are all globally passing through a very critical situation, which we should consider as a blessing in disguise. As such, it is a golden opportunity for the spiritual seekers and a destruction of false values, you can say, wrong tendencies. So the Lord is kind enough. He has kept the promise. You remember the 4th chapter of Gita. He says, Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkritam, dharma samasthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Keeping true to his promise, this phase at present we should consider as his blessing in disguise. And we should fully make use of this. And therefore now, despite of the conditions to stay at home, it is by Puja Gurudev's grace that we are able to still meet for our regular satsang. Now let us start, take up our text. We are on the 7th mantra. We are continuing the discussions. And in the 7th mantra, the topics that we have taken so far for this today's discussion, mainly 3 topics. The truth of Brahman is 1, it is subtler than the subtlest. 2, it is farther than the farthest. And third one, it is very much in this body. It is here within the body. That is the third. So we have to just discuss on this. Let us start. Mainly, effectively the para is 3rd para, and in this we are considering the statement of this. In the 3rd para, the first statement on page 117 is, in fact, in its very nature, it is nothing but the mass of light. This is the statement. We have discussed it already last time. And now here it is directly referring to the objectless infinite awareness. This objectless infinite awareness is well above the consciousness and the objects of consciousness. That of consciousness, the light of consciousness is all pervading entire creation. It is illumining the entire creation, and at the same time a ray of that light is reflecting in our intellect, and this light as reflected is illumining our inner world of thoughts and ideas, of our feelings and resolves. So the inner world is being illumined by the light of consciousness, and the outer world is also being illumined by the light of pure consciousness. The outer light basically is considered as pure because it simply illumines the forms. In illumining the forms, whether good, bad, or different, whether unholy, holy, light remains untouched, ever pure. Whether it illumines the Ganges water or it illumines the dirty water, it is not affected by the either. It remains as ever untouched. Therefore, this light of consciousness illumining the entire creation is pure light of consciousness. But when the same ray of light, the ray of the same light of pure consciousness, when it reflects in our intellect, it is considered as a conditioned consciousness because it is manifesting through the medium of intellect. So now the light that is offered by this intelligence in the intellect illumines my thoughts in the intellect, my feelings in the mind, and my perceptions and actions at the level of body and sense organs. So thus, beyond this light of consciousness and its illuminated objects, the light of awareness is well above and where the objects of the creation cannot reach. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, none of the things can reach there. So this is indicated by this very statement. In fact, in its very nature, now when you say its nature, we have to consider the nature of Brahman as available light of infinite objectless awareness. So this is being indicated here that in its very nature, it is nothing but the mass of light. Then the Swamiji has explained that it is not ordinary light, or it's a light without properties and qualities, etc. But the same paragraph in concluding, the last statement says, in short, this is a summary, it is awareness or consciousness. Now here it seems when both the terms are equated, awareness or consciousness, we have to understand that consciousness has got, as it were, two stages. One where it is conscious of, it is illuminating certain objects, feelings, or thoughts. So it has something or the other to illumine. There is a time when the light of consciousness has nothing to illumine. the light is on, whereas there is nothing to illumine. So when this consciousness or the light of consciousness is without anything to illumine, then it is termed by the Shastras as Prajnanam. Prajnanam is that light of consciousness wherein there are no objects to illumine. When there are, the first subtlest object is thought. The thought is also object of consciousness. So when there are thoughts to be illumined in the intellect, then that consciousness is called as Vijnanam. When the light of consciousness is without anything to illumine, then it is called as Prajnanam. Then this light goes down further to the mind and the sense organs. When illumining behind the mind and sense organs, the mind itself being the sixth sense, it's also one of the important organs. Indriyanam manaschasmi, says the Lord in Gita. So among all the sense organs, the lordliness is in the mind, because mind, when properly cultured, becomes a fit instrument for the consciousness to manifest. Therefore, in this mind, when the light of consciousness is thus behind the mind and sense organs, then it is called Saujnanam. So, the pure light of consciousness, when it enters our intellect, it becomes conditioned consciousness. When it is not illuminating any thought in the intellect, as in a state of meditation, then it is called as Prajnanam. And the Mahavakya in Rigveda says, Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam Anandam Brahma. So this Prajnanam means the light without any object to illumine is itself Brahman. Prajnanam Brahma. Now, therefore, the immediate state to be reached by the seeker is the state wherein he makes his mind free from thought, and then mind thus made free from thought is nothing but a fit medium for the consciousness to manifest itself with all its glory. This is the state where the Prajnanam is experienced with the help of mind that is free from thought. This is the attempt at the seat of meditation, where all the different thoughts have been reduced to the thought related to the nature of the self, and even this thought of the self is also dropped when the mind becomes free from thought, and I, who am awake at the seat of meditation, experiences or becomes aware of something which is present there, which is nothing but my own consciousness. So the consciousness without object is being experienced and spontaneously identified as myself, because that is the moment when I alone am and I become conscious of consciousness. This is a very critical state, and this is the beginning of our experiencing the light. Now the point here is, when Swamiji says awareness or consciousness, it means that whenever the consciousness is illumining any object, then it is conditioned consciousness. Whenever the consciousness is free from any object or is not illumining any object, then that objectless consciousness is considered immediately as the witness consciousness who is not involved, but since there is no object to witness, therefore it is called as pure consciousness. Now this pure consciousness, when I become steadied at this state of pure consciousness, then I become aware that this pure consciousness is itself the awareness. So one thing is objectively seen, I, the student of spirituality, trying to understand the different levels of consciousness, trying to raise myself from a given level of consciousness to the next level of consciousness. So likewise for me to practice, there are levels of consciousness, but let us understand that there is no level as far as awareness is concerned. There are levels in consciousness, but there is no level for awareness. Awareness remains the same all the time, free from any objects which cannot reach there. The object and the illumining consciousness is a pair in which sometimes the consciousness is with objects, sometimes the consciousness is without object. So when the consciousness is without object, and if I'm able to identify that objectless consciousness as my nature, then that pure objectless consciousness itself is called as awareness. This is a very important level of understanding, and one has to first think over. Now the levels of consciousness, when we say, I have a body consciousness, this is at present my level of consciousness, and therefore I am conscious of the forms and colors, etc., of the fivefold perceptions. When I raise myself and identify with the consciousness as manifest in the mind, I am conscious of the world of emotions, the world of resolves, etc. And I see everywhere the people who have feelings and emotions. When I raise myself to the level of consciousness, at the level of intellect, then I become conscious of the ideas and ideologies that the people are having. When I see the same person from the physical standpoint, as a body consciousness, I see him with forms and with various qualities, behavior, etc. When I go to the mental level, when I become mentally conscious of, then seeing the same person, I become conscious of his emotional personality. I give more weightage to emotions rather than his physical appearance, whether handsome or beautiful. So this, as I raise to the next level of consciousness, definitely my understanding and view of the world changes. Thus, raising myself rather, to the higher level of consciousness, a level is reached in meditation wherein the consciousness without any objects is the one, and that is my true identity. So my nature as pure consciousness, free from objects, when I am able to steady myself at this level of consciousness, considered as objectless consciousness or pure consciousness, and when I become steady there, I become aware of that light which is considered here as a mass of light, which is free from its lower level of consciousness and its objects to be illumined. That awareness and this pure objectless consciousness are one and the same. Therefore, it is referred here awareness or consciousness. In short, it is awareness or consciousness. If truth be awareness, next sentence, it is evident how our intellect cannot understand the awareness behind it. We have already discussed these points in the earlier section exhaustively. So it follows that here the consideration is for the subtle and the subtler, the first aspect that we are discussing. The body is gross, the thought is subtle, the consciousness illumining the thought is subtler. So here we are saying that gross is not able to understand the subtle. Subtle is able to understand the gross. Thus, body is not able to understand what is mind, but mind is able to understand the conditions of the body, sense organs, its condition like health, etc. Similarly, mind understands the body, sense organs and the outer world, but mind doesn't know the intellect, which has got something more which mind doesn't have. Therefore, the intellect being subtler, mind is not able to understand what is intellect. Levels, we are approaching level by level. And then subtler than the intellect is consciousness or light of consciousness. And intellect doesn't understand, but the light of consciousness illumines the thoughts in the intellect. Therefore, this intelligence in the intellect, which illumines the thoughts in the intellect, both are being illumined by the pure consciousness. This consciousness is not immediately accessible to the reflection of consciousness in the intellect, much less to the thoughts in the intellect. Therefore, it is said here that our intellect cannot understand the awareness behind it. Awareness behind it can be replaced by the equivalent term as pure consciousness, which are equated earlier. So thus we have covered this third paragraph. And then when it is said that the truth of Brahman. Now here take a pause and we have to discuss the very title of the topic. The truth of Brahman. Where the truth T is small, not capital. When T is capital, then it is equal to Brahman. But when it is said the truth of Brahman, then it is the reality of Brahman. So when the statement says Brahma Satyam, this Satyata, the reality, the Sattva of Brahman is to be appreciated. So here the whole topic is discussing about the nature of Brahman, the reality of Brahman, which is indicated by the term the truth with T small. Therefore, we are discussing now, our main topic is this, that awareness is subtler than the subtlest. This is Swamiji's statement. So when he says subtler than the subtlest, we start giving the levels of subtlety. Basically, the word subtle has to be appreciated. Now, the body is gross and thought is subtler than the body. This is what we have been saying all through. Let us take the example to appreciate this subtlety. Let us take an ice cube in our fridge. This ice cube is nothing but the water with foam. Now this water with foam is ice cube, which is called the gross. In a sense, the gross has a definite shape, size, dimension, and therefore form. Whereas when So definitely, since it has got a form, it occupies a space which is also limited or measured. But when this ice cube is melted, it becomes water. In fact, in no time, it becomes water when it is kept in the normal temperature. So when it becomes water, the water loses the form of the ice cube and it occupies a larger space compared to the ice cube. Therefore, the water is subtler than the ice cube in as much as the water occupies more space. Therefore, it is considered as more pervasive. This is one aspect of it. And thus, the water is subtler than the ice cube because water occupies more space. And when this water is evaporated, that vapor will occupy the whole room atmosphere. Therefore, the vapor or the steam from that water occupies maximum area in the room. Therefore, it is considered as more pervasive. So, the subtlety of an object is measured in philosophy in terms of its pervasiveness. The more pervasive it is, the more subtle it is. Now, when we are coming to this, here the light, a mass of light is considered as subtler than the subtlest. Therefore, now we have to level the various uh, manifestation of consciousness. See now, how is it? The body is gross, the thought is subtle. Here there is no comparison with body and the thought. Body is considered as gross, like an ice cube, having a form, occupied space, possesses weight and all that. And the thought is subtle. Subtler than the thought is illuminating consciousness. Illumining consciousness. Subtler than the consciousness, that is subtlest. The subtlest is the mass of light called as awareness. And when we say subtler than the subtlest, it is Brahman. This is one. Now, if you want to consider the mass of light itself as subtler than the subtlest within this area, then we have to include in between the vasanas which are unmanifest, and that level that the vasanas are subtler than the thought. Thought is only manifestation. I didn't count it because it's a question of only manifest and unmanifest. Therefore, our present statement is that the mass of light is the subtlest in the creation. It is beyond the object or thought and consciousness. Consciousness in its pure objectless state itself is called as awareness. Therefore, this awareness is well above the consciousness and its objects, and nothing is. So the Swamiji has put in the comment, in the explanatory comment, that it pervades all and nothing pervades it. So this is the light of infinite objectless awareness. Thus we have covered the first part of it, that it is subtler than the subtlest. Now farther than the farthest. This we have to see that the light of awareness is above all. This we have just now seen. The light of consciousness, when it is with reference to the objects illumined, whatever is the farthest object that you can think of. Suppose you have been to a very distant country, a foreign country, and a thought of that comes to your mind. Well, before even the thought comes to your mind, the consciousness is already there to illumine that thought. However, that thought may be of a farther thing. Why, even if you can think of heaven, which is not directly accessible to us here, as a Swarloka or Swargaloka, the third, Bhurloka, Bhuvarloka and Swarloka, is such a farther thing. Unless we die, we can't see the heaven, it is said. Therefore, that is the farthest. Now, even if you are thinking of the thought related to the heaven, well, before you think that, the consciousness has already reached there to illumine that thought. So thus we can see that however farther you go and think of that farthest thing, the consciousness has already reached there to illumine. In fact, there is no question of reaching. Being all pervasive, consciousness is everywhere. There is no place where the consciousness is not. Therefore, before our thought goes to a desirable object, consciousness is already there to illuminate. So this is considered as farther than the farthest. The consciousness, pure or light of awareness, mass of awareness, is farther than the farthest. So farther is a distance that you can think of, and however long you may think of a distance, in order that you become conscious of that distance, the consciousness has got to be there well before the thought of that distance comes in your mind. This is a bit subtler thought, and therefore we have only seen the subtler than the subtlest and farther than the farthest. But this is all related to something which we perceive, which we feel, which we think. So it is a world of perception, feelings and thoughts. Though the consciousness or awareness is all pervasive in this world, it cannot be experienced there. Refer Atmabodh. Atmabodh says, Sada sarvagato-pyatma na sarvatra bhasate. Even if the self as pure consciousness is sarvagataha, it's all pervading, still it is not realized there in the outer world. Sada sarvagato-pyatma na sarvatra bhasate buddhaveva bhaseta swacheshu pratibimbavat. If you want to realize that awareness, the mass of light, etc., which is well above the creation, then it will be accessible and experienceable only in the intellect, only in the purified intellect. Therefore, the third part of our topic is that it is here within the body. The third aspect, it is here within the body, meaning within the body there is mind. Within the mind, this is another aspect of subtlety. One aspect we have seen is that it is pervading, more pervasive. Another aspect now we are touching is within. Water is within the ice, the vapor is within the water. The water is more pervasive than the ice, vapor is more pervasive than the water. Similarly, here also we are saying that the subtler than the subtlest is available for our realization only in the body. So when we say in the body, immediately if you dissect the body, nothing will be found. Therefore, it is not the body. Within the body, subtler than the body is thought, subtler than the thought is consciousness, and consciousness without thought is really the subtlest, called objectless, pure witness consciousness. When you come to this state, when I become a witness and steadied at that level of meditation, then I become aware that, oh, I am all pervasive, objectless awareness. So, this pure consciousness, objectless, reached at the state of meditation by making the mind the medium of experience as free from thought. This experienced consciousness I can become when by repeated practice I first learn to identify my nature as pure consciousness, when even thought is also not there, even when the nature of thought that I was contemplating upon also is dropped down or negated, either way, then the mind becomes free from thought, and the mind free from thought, it becomes in deep sleep also, but by nature. Here we are deliberately bringing the mind to a standstill, and as though the mind is in sleep, we put the mind to sleep. Therefore, the mind is defunct or it is inoperative. When mind is inoperative, means it is mind is free from thought. And when thus mind becomes free from thought, it becomes the effective medium for the consciousness to manifest itself. When it manifests, I become conscious of consciousness, and by practice, I become consciousness. This is the level which we have reached within ourselves as pure objectless consciousness. When I become steady at this level, then I become aware of my larger state, and that state is called as infinite objectless mass of light or awareness. So this awareness, which is considered as subtler than the subtlest, which is considered as the farther than the farthest, is by itself realized only within the body, not outside. This is definite. Though the consciousness or awareness is all pervasive, it is present everywhere, it is not experienced there. It is experienced only within the body. Sada sarvagataha api atma na sarvatra avabhasayet. Everywhere it is not realized. You don't get illumined by seeing the world. You don't get immediately, you don't become aware of consciousness. But when you come within the body, when you yourself withdraw from the outer world, withdraw from the physical body, when you become stationed in the mind, work on the mind, give it an exercise of contemplation upon the nature of the self, and ask the mind to stop, and the mind drops that only thought, and you get the mind free from thought. This is something a deliberate attempt. Otherwise, mind by nature is not supposed to be without thought in the waking state. Mind is minding, it is full of thoughts, it is a flow of thoughts, and with efforts we are making ourselves introvert, gathered, and then we are trying to bring the mind, give up all other external thoughts, and trying to indicate, give the mind an exercise of contemplation upon the nature of thought, and thus we are making the mind free from thought. This is a technique. It is neither an art nor a science. It is a technique of halting the mind and making for a moment free from thought. When I am able to catch the moment, what I am doing there is trying to seek my identification that when even thought is denied, when everything else is absent, who is present? I am present. and it is consciousness that I spontaneously identify. I don't need anybody to introduce to me that I am consciousness. It is spontaneously understood that I am by nature consciousness. Now I have to steady myself. There's always two levels in meditation reached. One is a level reached, a higher level of consciousness reached is the first step. And the second is to steady there. Like when we are ascending the steps, we first raise our one leg and put it on the higher step and steady there. Then we raise our next leg, second leg, and put it on the higher step. Then we can be considered as having ascended to the next step. Not till then. So by first leg, I first reach the state of thoughtlessness in the waking state at the seat of meditation. This is my first leg raising to the next pedestal. And the second step is steadying there. Coming from the hot sun outside, suddenly when I enter the room, I can't see anything. I have reached the room, but I can't see anything in the room because of the glare that I have been facing so far. Now it will take time for the eyes to adjust themselves. And after some time, I will start seeing the things in the room. Similarly, at the state of meditation, the first phase is reached when by abhyas, practice, I reach repeatedly that sacred moment of thoughtlessness and confirm my identity that this is me. And when this identity is confirmed, I learn to be steady with this identity. And then I become aware that it has nothing to do with thought. I am independent of thought. If thought is there, I am there to eliminate. If thought is not there, I am there all the time. So if the consciousness is there, irrespective of the presence or absence of thought, this is very important understanding, and this takes me to the higher level, and I become all pervasive pure consciousness illumining the entire creation. There again, I have to withdraw from the creation and remain in myself, and then I reach objectless, infinite. Forms maketh finite. When without forms, when I withdraw from the creation, then I myself become, I reach the state of infinite, objectless, mass of light called as awareness. And when steadied there, I become all pervasive awareness. And this is the truth of Brahman. Hari Om. With the prayers. यस्य प्रसादादहमेव विष्णुः मय्येव सर्वं परिकल्पितं च इत्थं विजानामि सदात्मरूपं तस्याङ्घ्रिपद्मं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यं तस्याङ्घ्रिपद्मं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम् ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम।